So another issue that employers should, if they have not already done so, is develop a plan on how to recall furlough employees or rehire laid off employees. In other words, have an employee return to work plan. Although there is no one-size-fits-all approach, the one thing that all employers must be cognizant of is the need to ensure that employees are returning to a safe and healthy environment. Now, first and foremost, the key to a successful return to work plan is opening the lines of communication with employees early on. If your business already has a target date for reopening, which will heavily depend on the state and local guidelines and restrictions, be proactive, and management should begin contacting the employees you seek to bring back on board. Again, be proactive about this. Ensure that you clearly communicate and articulate the company's protocols in place to ensure that employees' health and well-being is being considered and taken care of. Similarly, as Anne previously discussed, some employees may be reluctant or hesitant to come back to work because of fear or anxiety related to COVID-19. By contacting your employees sooner rather than later, you will have more time to address these specific employees' concerns, particularly those who may have a pre-existing medical condition, as that could trigger reasonable accommodation under law, as Anne previously discussed. In the end, this will help you and the employee prepare and reach a mutually agreeable return to work plan. Likewise, early discussions will also help you in setting, gauging, and managing employees' expectations. At a minimum, you should address the company's social distancing rules in the workplace, as well as other mitigation measures that the company has or will implement moving forward. From a more practical standpoint, employers should also communicate the reopening date or dates of return, salaries, schedule, and other terms of employment. Now, as we've said a million times, and we'll continue to say it probably a million more times, it is crucial that you document all communications. We strongly recommend that you document any and all communications between the company and its employees with respect to rehiring or recalling. This will not only allow management to keep track of which employees have been already contacted, but it'll also create a paper trail. And this can be extremely useful should the employee raise any legal concern or claim, or should litigation ever ensue. Now, as Anthony previously mentioned, we develop a sample offer of recall that employers can use to document this. But before using it, please make sure to review it, ensure that it actually aligns with your particular business practices. Please also note that the sample is to be used for furloughed employees. It's a little bit different if you laid off employees. Now, other practical considerations that you want to bear in mind is the medium through which you will be contacting your employees. In other words, the how. Although we recommend that the communications be in writing, this is ultimately a business decision. Even if a company decides to communicate with their employees in writing, you should think about the best way to accomplish this. Will you be providing the notice via email? Bear in mind that not all employees may have or be able to access electronic communications. Alternatively, if you know that all employees you are contacting have access to email, then this method of communication may be the best approach. If email is not possible for at least some of your employees, it may make more sense to provide them with an actual written letter. However, be mindful of the implications of mailing a letter, such as timing of delivery. Remember, snail mail. Or would it make more sense to contact your employees telephonically? If you opt to go this route, you should also memorialize the conversation in writing. Or will you follow up with a letter or an email? These are all variables that businesses need to consider. Another thing, it's all about timing. It is crucial that employers give themselves plenty of time to contact their employees. What is your reopening date? This is important, as this will serve as the benchmark of when to begin communication with employee. If you're providing your employees with an offer of recall letter or any other offer of employment type of correspondence, you want to send these out with plenty of time so you can give the employee sufficient time to respond to the offer, to either accept it or reject it. Ideally, you would like to provide the employee with 1 week or more to respond. Of course, as everything is moving really quickly, this may not always be feasible. Aim to provide both your company and your future employee enough time to carry out these communications. Ultimately, a successful plan will be the one in which you give yourself and employee plenty of time to adjust to the changing circumstances. Now, talking about rehiring paperwork, how will you approach employees' return to work will also depend on whether they're furloughed or laid off. For furloughed employees, it means that they cease to work for the company for a period of time, but they retain their job. In other words, they remain company employees. It is as though the employee was on unpaid leave. Under most normal circumstances, an employer would not be required to complete new hire paperwork for furloughed employees. But take a look at the length of the furlough. If the furlough lasted several months, for example, it could potentially be considered separation of employment, thereby warranting the new hire paperwork requirements. It's a little bit different for laid-off employees. Laid-off employees effectively means that there was a severance on the employer-employee relationship. Consequently, rehiring your employee means that you are creating a new employment relationship. In the end, this employee would be treated as a new hire from a legal standpoint, even if in reality he or she is not an actual new employee. Now, employers can decide to relax their new hire protocols and procedures to speed up the process. For example, it's not requiring the employee to submit to drug screens or background checks unless they are legally required, of course. As a result, the employer will have to comply with the new hire paperwork requirements under California law. This includes, for example, the verification for employment process. Additionally, bear in mind that California requires certain forms and pamphlets to be given to all new hires. These include, for example, the DFEH sexual harassment pamphlet, the Labor Code Section 20, 10.5 wage theft notice form, and other tax withholding forms, amongst others. Now, another thing that you have to keep in mind is which employees are you bringing back? Pay close attention to which ones you are planning on bringing back to work, as this may carry legal implications. Then deciding who to hire or bring back from furlough is a business decision and will likely depend on individual business needs. But think, will you be bringing back all employees at once? Is that feasible? If not, then will the return to work be done in phases, with only a percentage of employees coming back at the early stages and subsequently rehiring the remaining employees? If you decide that you will be rehiring everyone at the same time, this won't be too much of an issue from a legal perspective. But if phased return is the company's plan, then there are a couple of things that you need to be mindful of. Our recommendation is that you develop and implement impartial selection criteria. Will the return employee selection be based on seniority, past performers? Regardless of what the underlying criteria is, what is crucial to keep in mind is that it has to be a legitimate, non-discriminatory business need criteria. Even if you believe that your selection criteria is objective and non-discriminatory on its face, you need to ensure that it does not have a disparate impact. In practice, your selection criteria could inadvertently have a disproportionate effect on a protected characteristic group, such as age, race, or gender. So we recommend that you refrain from using any such characteristic as part of your selection criteria.